call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. 551.072, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. 551.074, to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel, and the time is 5:30. Hey guys, are y'all ready? Everybody's on?
Ready.
Okay. The board will now reconvene into open session. The time is 6:39. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during the Matters from the Floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Item 5, invocation and pledge of allegiance. Tony, I think you said it was you, right? Okay.
If everybody would bow their head. Dear Lord, we come together today to carry on the business of the Northeast ISD. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as we deliberate on matters that benefit our children here in the district. And we ask that you hold dear the members of the board, Dr. Micah and his staff. In your name we pray.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Item 6, matters from executive session. Personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments. A, the Director of Performance and Planning. Do I have a motion to approve that as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Hasso. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. B, the principal of Cibolo Green Elementary. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hasso. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
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 Second. Aye.
Opposed? I think there is a little bit of a choppiness. Okay, so Mr. Hasso made the motion and Mr. Byer seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 She's got a delay.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you all for your patience with this. Item C, the principal of Windcrest Elementary. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Leos.
Second.
Mr. Leos got it, Terry. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you for doing that. You know what? Every time I look over, Omar's doing his finger, so I know that that's what he's doing. So maybe do that, Terry, and then, because it seems like yours is delaying a little bit. Gotcha. Do a gig 'em for me, can you?
Who said no? David said no.
Thank you.
As long as it's the index finger.
Okay, item 2, introductions, Dr. Micah.
All right. It is my pleasure that to introduce the new Director of Performance and Planning, was our interim director. That is Alex Vardell. The new principal for Cibolo Green Elementary will be Sarah Ramirez. And the new principal for Windcrest Elementary will be Rebecca Hope DeLomas. That's all the introductions I have tonight. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Item 7, presentations. A, Northeast Educational Foundation Annual Report to the Board of Trustees for the July 2019 to June 2020 fiscal year. Dr. Micah.
Thank you, Madam President. Making the way into the room is our executive director. I can't speak tonight, Amy. I'm sorry. Our executive director for the NEIF Foundation is Amy Lane. Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
That's great. Do y'all want me here or am I better over there?
Wherever you want to be.
Okay. Madam President, members of the board, executive staff, it is our pleasure to be here tonight to present the 2019-2020 annual report for the Northeast Educational Foundation. As you'll see, I brought a few guests with me. Jason, if you'll move one more slide. We represent 40 volunteer board of directors from the business community as well as parents. I've brought 2 of those with me today, our current chairman, Carl Hornbuckle, and our vice chair, Cindy Hernandez, and they're going to give the majority of this report. But before they do, I did want to say we are so thankful for all 40 of our volunteer board of directors. Some of you are also sitting here tonight. We also know that there are many more people behind our accomplishments than are listed on the screen right now, and those include the many donors to NEIF as well as this NEISD Board of Trustees. So thank you for your faith in us. Thank you for supporting us so that we could bring NEIF to the professional level it's at today. Now I'd like to play a quick video of Randy Bristow, our outgoing chairman.
I've had the privilege of serving as the chairman of the foundation for the past 3 years, and I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the annual report this evening. While this annual report to the Board of Trustees is a formal requirement of the Memorandum of Understanding, I speak on behalf of all the directors when I say that we look forward to sharing our success and challenges with the trustees on an annual basis. The Board of Directors of the Northeast Educational Foundation is comprised of wonderful people who are dedicated to our mission of improving educational outcomes for the students of Northeast Independent School District. To the Board of Trustees of NEISD, I want to stress that your ongoing support of the foundation, as outlined in the MOU, is vital. The Executive Director and her staff, really the heart of the agreement in my estimation, provide the framework upon which the foundation can maximize the time, talent, and gifts of the foundation directors. Of course, the directors themselves cannot do what they do without the sustaining support of our donors, the individuals, the corporations, and the philanthropic organizations that fund our mission. The donors are critical. Of course, the foundation's sterling reputation, backed by a full CPA audit and the GuideStar Gold Seal of Transparency, work in our favor in our quest to secure funding. This year's impressive report is a testament to the hard work and dedication of the directors and staff, a year that we all know was not without its challenges. In these troubled and turbulent times, the Northeast Educational Foundation invites teachers, administrators, counselors, coaches, librarians, nurses, maintenance staff, paraprofessionals, parents, and students to change the world by uniting with the Board of Trustees in our mutual support of public education. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah. My name is Carl Hornbuckle. I'm board chair. Cindy is vice chair, and we both wanted to be here tonight to echo, I think, the largest sentiment from Randy's presentation, which is to say thank you. We get one chance a year to come before you and share all of the good work that we're doing, that we're passionate about, but of everything that Randy just shared, we want to be sure we can echo that opportunity to say thank you to all of you. On the next slide. What we'd like to do, there's a beautiful report that Amy put together that captures a lot of information, but we'll walk through some of the highlights of that. So in terms of the data, the background, there's a couple of things that I wanted to highlight in particular. $171,000, that's monies that were raised that were targeted towards a specific initiative. For instance, money from Rackspace that went towards schools in the Roosevelt cluster. A $50,000 campus improvement at Camelot. That's a real target. We're proud of that, but that's also an area of growth for us that we're continuing to work on. The other number here I'll point out is that 440. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later and talk about some of the unique ways we tried to support the district in this past year.
Continue on the slide, Carr.
Next slide.
Next slide, yeah, I thought so. So what we wanted to talk a little bit about also is the donations that NEIF gave to the district. So you can see here in the 2020 fiscal year, which ended for us at the end of June, we gave $548,000, almost $549,000 to the district, which is just a small amount decrease from the previous year. And what's of note here is that we didn't have Big Give that year. Big Give got canceled and pushed into the next fiscal year. So we were still able to achieve some pretty significant results and give back to the district, and we're really proud of that. Additionally, we were able to continue to grow our net worth and grow our assets by $152,000, which is significant as well. We're very fiscally prudent and fiscally responsible and put that money away into our permanent fund before we're giving money back to the district so that we can continue to be prudent and continue to serve the district. Additionally, we gave these new teacher supply grants this year to the teachers, and you can see here that we had Carmen Santos, who was a teacher at Johnson High School and was very excited to get her teacher supply grant. That was something we started, I believe, 2 years ago, where we give teachers, new teachers to the district supply grants so they can set up their classrooms and that kind of stuff. And so it's a continued success for us and success for the district and a partnership with the district.
And that was something that occurred even with a virtual convocation, right? So yet again, everyone is having to kind of adjust to things on the fly. But we didn't want to lose that opportunity to help support teachers who are coming in newly to Northeast ISD. So we were grateful that that type of program could still roll forward.
We're done, right? I'm done.
Okay. Yes.
Your turn.
I'm here. This is the first time we've actually given our top sponsors to NEIF. We wanted this to be one more recognition piece for them. So you saw in the printed report you all received that this is our highlight of them. We also, if anyone chooses to honor their loved one by giving to NEIF, we take that really seriously. And so we wanted to utilize this as one more time to honor their life and their legacy in our printed annual report. So this is someone very special to our NEISD family. This is Ms. Winkley's father, Juan Pacina. So we are honoring him this year.
On the next slide, obviously the backbone of what we do is support the work of our teachers in the classroom. We had an abundance of opportunities this year with campuses across the district. The time frame for that changed a little bit.
I'm sorry, can you speak
Step
into the
forward?
mic?
Sure. So the time frame for that changed a little bit in terms of these grant awards being handed out virtually for the first time with some fun videos that I and my colleagues took part in making. But in addition to these ongoing activities on the next slide, what we wanted to talk about was what we were able to do in the spring, that 440 families that benefited from, Amy, get this right for me, $23,000
Yes.
in giveaways to support their need during the time of COVID. There are so many challenges that each of us have faced, and I think some people faced many more challenges than we can even realize. And so this was something that I think was important to the district and was an opportunity for us as the foundation to be able to very directly impact families' lives. You know, we were just saying out in the lobby that part of what we try to do is accomplish work inside the classroom, but what do you do when there is no classroom? And so for these families, this was a very real way that the foundation could support what Northeast ISD wants to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we are always efforting this growth on social media. This year we were able to increase by 20%. We did that with some very targeted initiatives. So we are efforting Meet the Board Monday, which many of you have seen, and this is just a way to really recognize our board and allow them to share their accomplishment with their corporations and organizations. In addition to that, we also did kind of lean into everything being virtual, and for our new teacher supply grants this year, we announced those on social media. So they had to actually go to our Facebook page and check back in every day that week to see if they were going to receive a teacher supply grant. So little strategies we're using here and there. There's a lot of room for growth, but we are efforting that. Beyond the numbers, so we are definitely numbers people. Anyone who works for a foundation, you care the most about the dollars that are coming in. But we do recognize that there's a lot of value to what we're doing that's beyond those numbers. And so we wanted to point out a couple of those. The first being that in a world where there isn't a ton of positivity, we want NEIF to be seen as that bright light. And we want all of our board members to serve as advocates for the great things going on in Northeast ISD. So that's first and foremost. Additionally, we want to make sure that donors have a respectable and a well-respected place to give their gifts. And so that GuideStar rating is really important there. That's the first place that a lot of folks go when they're looking to give a charitable donation. And so every year we make sure that we do all of the little extras to get us a gold rating on GuideStar. Additionally, the last one I want to talk about is retention, because that's been so important to you as a board. That's one of your goals, is to hire and retain the best staff. And so when I think about NEIF in terms of retention, I didn't get an allowance growing up, so I don't know this for sure. But I can imagine that if you get an allowance, that money is a little bit extra special because you have ownership of it. And so when I think about what we do, we're not providing the basics, but we are providing that extra piece of ownership for teachers who are looking to fund their pet project that they as experts know is going to reach their students. And so we feel that we do have a part to play in helping retain our staff and giving them those extra special programs. Now it is my absolute joy to introduce you to the person who should be speaking, and that is one of our grant recipients. So Sarah Romine from Woodstone is going to share a little bit with you all.
Thank you. Good evening. As Amy said, my name is Sarah Romine, and I am the librarian at Woodstone. And last year, I had the honor of receiving a NEIF grant in the amount of $5,500 for NEISD's first book vending machine. The grant patrol came in the middle of one of our Synergy rallies, where the whole school was in attendance. They came in with their big check, and the kids went crazy. They thought it was real, money right there. And it was a really neat opportunity for them to see and hear about this wonderful gift to our school. Fast forward to December, and a very large, mysterious box showed up in the library with a "Do not open until December 19th" statement written on the front, and the excitement just grew. We unveiled our vending machine on December 19th live on Facebook and awarded 6 students, one from each grade level, with the first tokens for books. The joy on their faces and the faces of their classmates was priceless. Later that evening, the 3rd grade teacher whose student was one that received a token that day for his thoughtfulness when he always was checking the playground after recess and bringing in the sweaters and jackets and water bottles that were left out there and finding their owners, she texted me and said that the student at one point in the afternoon looked at her with his book in his hand and said, "So I really get to keep this book?" And she replied, "Yes, it's all yours." And with the biggest smile on his face, he answered, "So I can actually write my name in it? That's awesome." You can fast forward. So when the students come to the library for checkout, they gather around the vending machine to see what books are there and if any have changed since the week they were there before. On Fridays, when the nominations are being read over announcements, you can hear classes cheering from down the halls. And when I round the corner after doing announcements and see the pride on the students' faces and hear them say, "This is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me," my heart just swells with pride. These are the moments created by the Northeast Educational Foundation grants. Whether it's for a classroom or a school, these grants make a difference. This vending machine has made a big impact at Woodstone. So big, in fact, that the principal at Vineyard Ranch, Deidre Williams, wanted one so badly at Vineyard that she had to leave and come to Woodstone just to get one. But all joking aside, students, that's what she said. She said when she got the news that she was coming to Woodstone, she's like, that's the place with the vending machine. So she was very excited.
That's awesome.
But all joking aside, students are earning tokens for and hearing about the positive ways to make a difference, and staff are on the lookout for those behaviors. We have students earning tokens for all kinds of things, ranging from showing respect for our campus by picking up trash on the playground, to showing kindness by giving up favorite flexible seating options in the classroom or a manipulative in STEAM class, to being encouraging to others when they are struggling with a problem. And my personal favorite, a very perceptive fourth grader showed compassion for his teacher when he began assisting another student. He had noticed his teacher was getting a tad bit frustrated with this girl who had not paid attention during her whole group lesson and was now interrupting her small group, wanting the teacher's help with the assignment. He took the girl aside and answered her questions so that the teacher could concentrate on the small group. And that's the kind of impact that we're wanting, is for kids to be noticing how they can help others, and not because they want a token for the vending machine, but just out of the goodness of their hearts. This machine is making a difference. Last year, in the 9-week period between the unveiling of the machine and the infamous 5-month spring break, 54 students at Woodstone received tokens. And this year so far, 36 students have received tokens as well. That is 100 books in the hands of students for their own libraries at home. 100 books that now have students' names in them. And we have the Northeast Educational Foundation to thank for that. Thank you.
Can I add a little bit to that? Because some of us got to be there the day that the machine was unveiled. And I don't know, maybe Sarah can add to this, but there were some of the cutest stories that she shared with us that day. You saw the machine was wrapped up like a big, huge present. And for several days, the children were wondering what was in the box. And it went from everything from Santa Claus to a reindeer, because it did kind of move. You know, it was that was so cute. But I think my favorite thing that happened that day was watching the children as they were gathered after the machine was opened and they were getting their tokens. And that machine, by the way, is so cute with all the books in it. And there was this one student off to the side, and the group of foundation people that were there watching, and he was praying. Oh. He literally was praying that and when he got a token. Yeah. So it was really great to see someone's prayers answered right then and there. So this is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I love this machine.
It's been a lot of fun.
We are here if you'll have any questions for us. Otherwise, I want to end on the note that we said a couple of times already, but this is all because of you, so thank you for that.
Yes, Amy, can I give this to you? And I just wanted to say thank you very much. It was a lovely, lovely tribute. And we're all in education, and I think it's a wonderful idea. He was so proud of the many things that our district and our staff and our students did. He had 4 grandchildren that were NEISD kids, and he was very proud. He went to a lot of plays and sports events and all sorts of things. So and he actually managed to sit through a 5th grade orchestra concert. And I think I did see him turn off a hearing aid though that day. But I just want to thank you, and it's a lovely tribute. He would be so proud.
Oh,
so proud. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything?
Yeah, I wanted to say, Amy, Carr, Cindy, I can't see you, but I could hear you. And I know we talk about this every year, that they come and give their report, their update. And I'm part of the board, but what Amy, Crystal, Natalie, now what Carr and Cindy and Randy before them have set this foundation on and created the partnerships for the district. And we've just increased that amount of money that's gone to teachers every year. Now we're getting new teachers, grants, and gift cards to help with their classrooms. It's just absolutely incredible what's happened. And like Sandy, I was at the Woodstone unveiling last year. Got to go present the check first, and I got to go to the unveiling, and it was absolutely incredible to see a bunch of kids excited about books, which you don't necessarily see every day. And the look on their faces when they got to drop that coin in, get the book, and then they all ask, do I get to keep this? Do I get to keep this? And sure enough, they can. So thank you for the Northeast Foundation and the partners that have come on board with us, and the 40 people that drive this thing every day, because it's been a challenge since March, but we've made it work. And Dr. Micah got to drive an excavator, so that was even a blessing there too.
Hey, that made my whole day, Mr. Byer. That was a throwback to as a child with my dad.
Anybody have anything? I just want to thank you so much. You have gotten so creative and have really, the opportunities that you're giving our teachers and staff by providing them these great creative grants is just really amazing to see how they can get creative with their kids and do some really neat things that we wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't be able to do without you. So, and like the golf tournament, I mean, y'all have raised a ton of money even during COVID. So kudos to you and all of your directors and staff, and congratulations, Carl, on being the new chairman, and Cindy, and you know, hopefully someday we'll get to do stuff in person again.
I know.
and raise more money.
He's like, thanks, I'm the 2020 chairman.
Yeah.
Great. Just what everyone wanted.
Yeah, but thank you again for everything that you do for our teachers and our kids. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And a great presentation. Thank you. Item B, 2020-2021 student-to-student Purple Star designations. Mr. Jarrett.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. At this time, I would like to ask Dr. Munoz to come forward for the next presentation. Her presentation will include a celebration of where our district has really worked hard to embrace our students who continue to move throughout the country as their families serve our great nation. And so I'll turn it over to Dr. Munoz. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and distinguished guests. I'm very, very proud to announce that we did have 11 Purple Star designations this year. This was our second year with this program, and lots of campuses did an amazing job. So I just kind of wanted to inform you all of the program and the wonderful things that it does bring for our students. So at NEISD, an unlimited number of military and civilian members who have changed schools 6 or more times throughout their academic careers will benefit from student to student. We do know that there are a lot of military families that are highly mobile. They actually do look for the Purple Star designation for campuses when they are changing school districts. And I'll show you just in a few minutes a snippet that we have on our website right now. And we also do go above and beyond by allowing students who are in constant mobility or constantly moving from district to district the opportunity to participate in this program as well. And so if they are going to a new campus, they may not have friends, they may not know the schedule or the principal or counselors. And so we do give them the opportunity to participate in this program. So as part of the Purple Star designation, it is a special honor created by the 86th Texas Legislature through Senate Bill 1557 in 2019. And it was created to recognize Texas school district campuses that show their support and commitment to meeting the unique needs of military-connected students and their families. So there we have the secondary campuses that currently have that program, and we came out first in the region, which I'm very, very proud to announce, and the second highest in the state, which is an amazing accomplishment, yes. So the pillars of student-to-student revolve around leadership. It is a student-led program. It builds upon student character and growth. Academics, as long as we are able to see what kind of academic foundation students had, we're able to make educational adjustments for every single student on an individual basis. We also look into service and community outreach, so we connect the student to our community, which is huge. We also help students find their way through campus culture and other programs, connecting them to extracurriculars, taking them to football games, making sure that they feel welcome. We also do the relationship building, which is building a bond. The students are leading this charge 110% with the support of faculty. And ultimately, it revolves around 100% acceptance, respect for all, leadership for all, and service for all, which is an amazing mantra for them to have. So as I had mentioned before, Student to Student is a support plan that is led by students, and it is supported by faculty. So students welcome the students and the families to the campus. The Student to Student members provide a campus tour so that way they're familiar with the campus itself. They sit with them at lunch, which is huge, because sometimes that's the scariest 30 minutes that a child could have. And so they're able to immediately be connected with someone to feel part of a group. They also help students participate in after-school activities, and that's also huge because they may have had interests in other campuses, and they're able to still connect with those interests at their present school. The faculty allow for student to students to provide the campus tour. They are there as teachers and coaches. They provide vouchers for new students so they can attend sporting events for free. And we also identify new members, and they facilitate the student-to-student relationship building by allowing the tours, by allowing them to participate in extracurricular events, and allowing that the group basically embrace these new students and make them feel part of our community. So now on our district website, I'm very proud to announce that all the campuses that receive this designation, when a parent or a community member goes onto our website, they have and they see that Purple Star designation next to the campus name. So we're really, really excited. We did include the link for the TEA Purple Star designation, which takes you directly to the website through TEA so that you can understand the purpose behind this program. It is a tenacious process, but a lot of our campuses went above and beyond. And like I had mentioned, this is not just for the military family. This is for any family that comes to NEISD who is new to our district. So thank you so much for your support. I have the lovely Natalie Holzen here who can take any additional questions that you may have.
Okay, that's really awesome. You just said that it's for any new family, not just military?
Yes, we've taken it a step further because we understand that the community is in great need at this point. Since the inception, one of the main things that they wanted was that any student who came to NEISD would feel welcome, because sometimes if they're not connected right away, we lose them. And so Audrey Garcia, our state compensatory assistant director, Natalie, we have Kyra as well, part of the guidance services. They are leading the charge for all campuses to embrace all students that are new to the campus. So
that's awesome.
It is a student-led program, and so that's why I think it's had a huge success.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? No. Thank you for the presentation. That was awesome, and congratulations to
Congratulations.
Yes, the
district
campuses have done an amazing job.
Yeah,
So
this is
thank you
awesome.
so much.
Thank you.
That's great.
Oh, I know. Item 8, new business for possible board action. A, discussion and possible action on board meeting operations, operating procedures, and board policy BE local. Dr. Mike and I are going to kind of tag team on this, but as you know, we've been talking about board operating procedures. Last month, we talked about making some changes to our agenda where we would specifically line out personnel that we were hiring, not just principals, and as we did that today with the director and the principals. We also added a section at the on the front page where we have directed people to the YouTube so that they can watch the live stream. So just in the continuous mode of looking at board operating procedures, we've made some changes to it. But one thing that I want to talk about, and we've kind of talked about this in the past as well, but I want to pursue moving matters from the floor to near the beginning of the regular meeting. And I think Ms. Huey wanted to speak a little bit about why it has been at the end. And then after she does that, I'll talk more about where I want us to talk about moving it to.
Okay. Well, I think the issue of the placement really kind of got highlighted about, during the last session, so it's been about 2 years ago when the state started mandating how we handled our matters from the floor. And in our case, we actually were already following what they put into law so far as people addressing agenda items at the correct time and things. That we'd always had that. That had always been there. I was brand new on the board when matters from the floor was moved to the end. And it was actually done then as a matter of respect and consideration for staff who had been at work since dark 30 that morning and might have a huge presentation that evening, and sometimes had to sit through a matters from the floor session that at that time there were some very contentious issues going on, and it not only got a little nasty, it got a little long, and staff was kept here until really, really late. So in an effort to respect their time and all the work that they'd already put in, it was decided then to move matters from the floor to the end. So I think the adjustment that's made now, and it was allowed to go for hours, I think the adjustment now, which most districts already had done, districts that do, you're not required to have matters from the floor. That is not, except for specific agenda items, but most districts have always had a time limit of 30 minutes on their matters. We're one of the very few that I knew of around the state that allowed hours of comments, because as you know, this is not the board meeting is a meeting of the board in public. It is not a public meeting, it's in public. So there was never a mandate that you had to have a matters from the floor. It's often called different things at other boards. And I always received a lot of shocked looks when they heard that ours sometimes went extremely long. So, because everyone else keeps them to 30 minutes. Under various methods, whether it's a reduced time per speaker or the first 10 speakers and they each get 3 minutes or whatever. So, but never longer than 30 minutes. So we've always been unique kind of in that way, so.
Yeah. So I think by us, if we vote to approve these changes to board operating procedures, we would limit the time to 30 minutes. And I had asked Dr. Micah to look at how many people, an average of the number of people that sign up to speak, because right now we have 3 minutes per person, and so if we set it at 30 minutes, that could be 10 people. So the average number of people.
So Madam President, what I did is I took a 2-year historical look along with Peggy. And so what we did is we took a look at only the times when people signed up to speak. So understand that there are many board meetings that we had no one sign up. So that's excluding these. So of the board meetings that people did sign up for, so you're going to hear the old math teacher in me. All right, so I've done a lot of calculations. The range was between 0 and 10, all right? The average speakers is 2.59. So, just a little over, I don't think we have a half a speaker, so we can just round up to 3, right? And so, and then I took a look at the mode, because what I wanted to make certain is how often, right, they were signing up. So, 10 times it was 1 speaker. 3 times it was 2. 5 it was 3 speakers. 4 speakers was twice. There were 0 for 5, 7, 8, 9. There was 1 time where there was 6, and 1 time where there was 10. So when you take a look at that over that time period, I think your 30 minutes, the fact that the most that signed up in that 2-year span was 10, that would still allow you 3 minutes per person and still get you your 30 minutes. So I think you're safe in that number.
Okay. But we can also, if there's something where we have 20 people signed up, we have the ability to adjust the time per speaker. So we could reduce that time and still hear from everyone who signed up. So,
When we attended TASB a few years ago, we went into a session that discussed that, where the time then went from 3 minutes to 1 minute and a half. Just
Right.
depend, you just take the number of speakers and then you
Right.
divide it by 30 minutes, or the 30 minutes by the number of speakers and you get the minutes. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's the proposal in here is the 30 minutes.
I think it's also really important to consider too, that since this is in the last few years too, we have opened up many more options to address the board. I think the board at NEISD.net has been probably a much better way to communicate than coming here to a board meeting. The other factor was that we were really proud of the work that we were doing in the board, and we really wanted people to hear the business of the board. And we found that people were speaking and leaving without ever having their questions answered, because that item hadn't been presented. So they'd come and talk at the beginning and then leave. And there was never a resolution to their issues for them. But I think, between email and as you speak at the beginning of the meeting, there's always different ways, during matters, there's always different ways to contact the board. Calling the superintendent's office and getting our direct emails or our phone numbers, things like that. There's so many more options now than there were
Right.
even 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and this is just the matters from the 4 sections. So if somebody wants to speak to a specific agenda item, they still
That
have
would
the
still be
opportunity to
different,
do
right. They
that.
still
So this
come
is
in,
just the general matters from the floor.
Yes.
So in looking at the agenda, placement of where that could be, we would still do executive session at the beginning of the meeting. So we would open at 5:30, we would adjourn into executive session. We would come back out at 6:15. We would do the at the earliest. We would do the invocation and the pledge, and then we would do recognitions. So if we had student groups that we wanted to recognize, I think we could do them first and allow them to then go home. Then we would do matters from the floor, and then we would go into our business meeting. So it would be matters from executive session, and then presentations and new business and blah, blah, blah. So does anybody have any thoughts or comments about moving matters from the floor to near the beginning of the meeting?
No, I think it's a good move. As we're trying to help, as Ms. Huey said, move things for staff, keep that near the beginning, so if they've had a long day, they can go home. I think that's a good move for the folks in our community too, to try to get the just general matters from the floor up to the beginning. I think I heard, just to clarify, it would still allow people. This doesn't have anything to do with the specific agenda item.
Correct.
So if you've got something you want to say about an item, you can still sign up and get your time.
Correct. You would still speak at that time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody have anything else? Okay, and then we had BE Local, and I'm going to let Dr. Micah speak to. I'm sorry.
I had one other thing on the operating procedures.
Okay.
I did have one suggestion I'd like to add into the operating procedures on page 16. It's under, item 10E, line, and then number 5. And it talks about level required by Texas law if a board member's in violation as recognized by Texas law. I'd like to add federal in there, Texas and federal law. Because we did have an instance just recently where we did have a trustee that violated federal law that could have put us in a very difficult situation, legally, financially, all kinds of other things. So Texas law is of course the majority of what governs us, but
And then add federal.
I think adding federal is important.
Okay. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Peggy, do you mind making that change or? Okay. So that's board operating procedures unless somebody has something else about board operating procedures. Okay,
Good
now,
job on this.
and now I'm gonna, Dr. Micah.
Let me make sure that Peggy, I hope you got this, but I'm just going to reiterate it. So you haven't voted yet, but I want to make sure I understand. So after invocation and pledge, it would be recognitions, if we have any. Then it would be matters from the floor. And then we would go for matters for executive session, correct?
Do you think that?
No, that's fine. I just want to make certain that we have it, because Peggy's going to have to create this agenda. And so I want to make sure she has that. All right, good.
I really do like keeping it to 30 minutes too. I think that still maintains the respect for staff
Sure.
that has
Yes.
already put in goodness knows how many hours.
Yes.
And to make them wait until, well, I only remember a couple of midnight meetings, but
Yeah.
thank goodness.
So as far as BE local goes, Mr. Lopez, the attorney for the district, was actually supposed to be here this evening to discuss this. However, he has had a family emergency, so he wasn't able to attend this evening. So I'm going to cover, because we spoke about it. So Mr. Byer, if you remember our last board meeting, you had asked or made a motion for a presentation for SHAC, correct, in January or February. And then
Yes.
I believe, Mr. Hasso, you seconded it, and then you guys voted on it, correct? Well, we went into, because afterwards, as we were going through board operating guidelines and some other stuff, we came upon BE Local, and what we realized is you all followed a process, but it wasn't actually, your policy and your process didn't align. Now, the way that Mr. Byer did it and the way you all did is exactly how this district has operated as a board for a long time, but in BE Local, it did not say that. That is not how you went about doing it. So what Mr. Lopez and I did was work on BE Local to make sure that your policy mirrored the practice that you all did. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's what we did. That policy did not state it, even though you all did it all the time. It just didn't match. So we have made those policies now match, with the policy match with your practice.
For what it's worth, that was an issue that was voted on many years ago. That was created by Molly Pruitt, the former secretary of the board for goodness knows how long. And Molly was the one that wrote it, and we did vote on it at a meeting to put that process into place. And again, that's a policy, a practice that I've shared, and I think others have with other trustees around the state. And it's very admired. Mm-hmm. Because it maintains a sense of decorum about what we're doing. It does not allow any one trustee to, because this happened in a district very close to us, that one trustee kind of took over. He drove their staff crazy. So it was actually done as a response, this was a long time ago. And it's kept things moving, and it's kept things very respectful. So it's been duplicated, what we've done. I've been asked many times for a copy of how we do this motion.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the revised board operating procedures and BE Local?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Hasso. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Item B, resolutions. 1, possible action regarding retention supplement for 2020-2021 school year. Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'm going to ask Shiloh Witten to address this item at the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Newman. Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Tonight, we present to you a resolution for your consideration for retention supplement. Whereas the Northeast Independent School District has always been and remain committed to recruit and retain quality personnel. Whereas on June 15th of 2020, the Board of Trustees adopted a compensation plan to freeze salaries for the 2021 school year due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the uncertainty it created for school operations and for the federal, state, and local economies upon which school funding is reliant. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Northeast Independent School District authorized the superintendent to explore means of providing all NEISD employees an increase in compensation for the 2021 school year if conditions and the budget permit. Whereas the administration of Northeast ISD has determined funding is available to provide NEISD employees with a one-time supplement for the 2021 school year to further the educational purpose of helping to retain its valued employees who ultimately provide students with quality instructional services. And whereas the Board of Trustees finds that retention of employees throughout the course of the 2021 school year is an important benefit to the district, and that a retention supplement will promote employee morale and retention. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby declares that each full-time district teacher and librarian with a hire date on or before October 1st, 2020, shall receive a one-time retention supplement of $560, such amount to be payable at the end of the fall semester of the 2021 school year in the month of December, provided the teacher and/or librarian does not resign before the last duty day of the fall semester. Be it further resolved that all other employees of the Northeast Independent School District shall receive a retention supplement of 1% of the annualized pay grade midpoint under the employee's applicable 2021 salary range. To qualify for the supplement, the employee must have a hire date on or before October 1st, 2020. The supplement amount shall be paid in one payment in December, provided the employee does not resign before the last duty day of the fall semester. And temporary and substitute employees, along with other employees employed for less than 20 hours per week, would be ineligible for this supplement. The proposed retention supplement, as stated, serves to promote employee morale and retention. A budget amendment is prepared to reflect the financial impact to the general fund, equaling approximately $3.9 million. So we bring this forward before the Board of Trustees to recommend approval of the retention supplement for the 2021 school year.
Thank you.
Mr. Moy, do you want to talk about how this is possible, very briefly, where this money is coming from? Will you please?
So with the previous budget amendment, we had come with about $8 million of what is called settle up money from prior years, where we went and had our consultant basically appeal the property value that is used in the state funding formulas. It was too high based on all of the lawsuits and settlements that were done locally. They're not updated at the state level. We have to constantly fight to get those updated. We're bringing you a third one worth about $5.1 million in tonight's budget amendment. And it is rare to get this many big chunks at once. But the state had been basically put a halt to these appeals. We haven't received a significant amount of money from this process in close to 3 years. Wow. So we had no idea when it was going to come in. When was the state going to pick this back up, this process of processing these appeals? And they finally did.
Okay, thank you. Miss Esterline, you signed up to speak to this, correct? Yes. Okay, I'm going to read the matters from the floor portion. The trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but are not permitted to make 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies, 2, a personnel action, 3, a student disciplinary matter, 4, a complaint about a particular student, 5, or pending litigation. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the superintendent's office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas 78217. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, President Grona, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. My name is Patsy Esterline, president of the Northeast AFT. Our office is at 10615 Perrin Vital, Suite 203, San Antonio, Texas 78217. Mr. Hasso, thank you for your service. Welcome back to the board, Mrs. Grona, Mrs. Huey, Mr. Byer, and Mr. Leos. Northeast AFT looks forward to working with you all this school year. Thank you for discussing this retention supplement to go to the employees. Every employee this school year has done at least 2 jobs, their own and the extra that has been asked of them. Northeast AFT asks that you approve of the retention supplement to reward employees for the outstanding job they have done in this unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm having to read from my computer because I can't figure out how to get it to print to the printer at the office. So, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding this retention supplement? Dr. Micah, you're getting...
Well, no, you guys go first.
Okay. No, nothing over there? Okay, Dr. Micah.
I will just echo Miss Esterline. You know, when this money came in and Brian and Dan came to speak to me, really there was only one thought in my head where it goes, was to our employees. I know from speaking to you all as a board how difficult it was this summer to not be able to do anything because of all the uncertainty with COVID. And so we really took a hard look at this and said, you know, this has to be where it goes. And while we always wish it were more, right? Right now, this is what we can do at this moment in time. And really, for us, we looked at it and had lengthy discussions because this will land, in my opinion, when people need it the most. It's right at Christmas. And so this will be, if it's approved this evening, will be in their December paycheck for them right at Christmas time, which you know, is a small gesture to just let all of our employees know, from the bus drivers to our teachers, just how much we recognize the hard work that they've done. It has truly been a Herculean effort. Each time my executive staff or myself visits a campus or a department, we're in awe with what these employees are doing. And so I just ask that you really take that into consideration when you're considering this, because again, they've just done amazing work. I couldn't be more proud of what they have done.
Well, in my mind, it's a no-brainer. I mean, because we wanted to do something this summer and we couldn't. And we talked about the possibility of, you know, if we could find money doing it, you know, as we're doing it later in the year. So do I have a motion?
I just have to say, I agree with Dr. Micah. I wish it was 10 times this much.
Yeah.
It's what has gone on, and I agree with you too. So much what everyone has done is just amazing, and there's no way to thank you enough.
Right. And just remember, we have the uncertainty of a legislative session coming up, right? And so this is what we can do right now, and then, you know, we'll definitely always be on the lookout to how we can reward our staff for what they're doing at this time.
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve the retention supplement for the 2020-2021 school year? Oh, Terry, I'm sorry. Thank you, Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Item 2, possible action regarding district concession stand proceeds. Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff and guests. At this time, Julie Shore, our executive director for Fine Arts and Student Activities, will address the concession stand procedures.
You can take it.
Good evening, President Gerna, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I am bringing an action item for your consideration for the concession stand proceeds. I'd like to give you a little bit of background information about the district's concessions. Many years ago, a group of very dedicated band parents took on the charge of running the district concession stands at all of our district venues. The group of band parents became known as the Northeast Band Parents Association, or the NEBPA. They were made up of band booster presidents from each high school, and their voice was the voice for their campus booster organization as a member of its larger booster group. The NEBPA would pay a portion of the profits earned from the concession stands and as a concession fee to the district, and use the remaining funds to enhance our band programs and on our campuses. As our district has grown, we've added new high schools, new venues, and accepted more rentals of our district venues from outside organizations. These additions, although great enhancements to the district, created extra demand on this group of volunteers, and securing the number of band parent volunteers necessary has proven more difficult over time. Another concern of this group was the total profit receiving for the work that they contributed. The NEBPA was a 501c3 organization. They hired and paid a salary to their own concessions manager, concessions assistant manager, and CPA. They were also responsible for all the ordering expenditures for all the inventory. At the end of the 2019-2020 school year, one of our high school booster groups decided they could no longer participate in concessions. This was a concern due to the extra stress it put on the other 6 schools to cover the events that school could no longer cover. Soon after that announcement, another one of our school band booster groups decided they would not be able to find the volunteers to work the events, and they too would no longer be able to participate in our concessions. In an attempt to help the band boosters as much as possible and relieve some of the cost associated with running concessions, our district approved and hired a concessions manager who took on the inventory, scheduling, finances, and calendar for scheduling volunteers to work our events. With this change, the district now makes all the credits and debits for concessions through a district account instead of all the funds running through a bank account managed by the NEBPA. This action item is asking you to consider allowing the transfer of funds from the district's concessions account to our band booster accounts, other activity booster accounts, and our campus student activity funds accounts to properly divide the proceeds earned by the volunteers working the concession stands at our district venues. The action item reads, the Texas Education Code limits the use of school district local funds to purposes necessary in the conduct of the public schools determined by the Board of Trustees. Texas Education Code 45.105C. Currently, our district does not permit the exchange of funds from a district account to a booster club account. With the district now managing concessions at our district venues and using booster club volunteers as workers, we would like to divide the profits earned to the booster clubs as we know these proceeds benefit students participating in the extracurricular activities supported by these boosters. Administrative staff recommends to the Board of Trustees to grant permission to allow the transfer of these revenue funds earned by the district venues concession stand to booster club accounts associated with district programs. These funds are not state or local taxpayer funds. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just from being, somewhat recently having high school kids, so I'm very aware of the band program. I think it was wonderful, but it was a lot of work. Those band parents work hard. So I'm excited that they can still participate, receive funds, but not have to be so responsible for all of those events. My question is, though, you said other boosters. So does that mean that other booster clubs, aside from band, can participate by volunteering, or is it just specifically to band and dance? I'm assuming fine arts, since...
No, ma'am. So we are not limiting it just to fine arts programs.
Okay.
We would like to offer to as many of the booster and student organizations that we can. It does take a lot of parent volunteers to run a concession. For example, one football game at one stadium on a Friday night takes 80 parents to run the concessions.
80?
80, yes, ma'am. And so our bands are so great and they're so large that we have a large pool of parents that are able to run that type of an event. Our new concessions manager is reaching out and has reached out to other organizations such as JROTC programs. Currently, our Spirit programs, when they could have the manpower, it's right in the middle of their national season. So right now, currently, we're not doing that with our Spirit organizations, but we aren't limiting it just to band parents.
That's amazing. My other question for you was typically what, and I know that it varies from game to game, but typically what can a booster club make manning one side of a concession stand?
That's a great question. I will tell you that it varies greatly on the game. So
Okay.
if it is a big rival game and we have lots of people in the seats, one night could bring in quite a lot of money. I do have information over the past several years, whereas for the fall, which is our big push for concessions, we have lots of events in the fall. Our band groups, but remember before that the NEBPA ran it differently. In the fall, a group could walk away with anywhere between $12,000 to $15,000 per school for working the fall concessions.
Wow. That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question, Ms. Shore. Are there schools in the, I guess, in the last couple of years that have not been able to really run the concession? I know you said there's some that have backed out over the last couple of years, but are those organizations on those schools that haven't been able to participate, are they able to pull together with other groups within their school to help make up that 80 people if they can't get that? Just I'd hate for schools to be missing out on, $10,000 that can go towards the organization if they're not able to pull the right amount of people together to work a football game on Friday night.
Yes, sir.
And this might be getting out of the resolution a little bit, but it just a question that came up.
Yes, sir. So currently, we have only assigned band groups to work football concessions because of the training and that's required, the food handling, the cleaning, the setup, the money handling. And fortunately, since our band boosters have run it in the past, they had the necessary training and understood how the concessions worked. So currently, we are using our band boosters to do the concessions at the football games at both Heroes and Comalander. The groups that backed out, that were no longer able to participate, the other high schools are able to pick up those extra events and they will be paid a percentage of the number of events that they worked. But we also aren't closing the door to our other groups. So when they feel comfortable to come back and they feel like they can have enough volunteers to work the events, those doors aren't closed for them.
Well, and I guess this gets into the, are we able to let multiple schools work a game at the same time? Just because I think we start getting at a little bit of a disadvantage with I think some of the schools, if they're not able to participate, then they've just lost out on money. And if it's a sheer numbers thing, are we able to split that to allow it, say, hey, we don't need all 80 people, but if you can give us 20 people, we'll still give you a percentage of what comes in the door that day. Because I'd hate for a school to say, hey, we can't do this right now because we don't have the minimum number it's going to take to do it. And then they just get further behind for the number of years that they can't participate in that concessions program. So I don't know if there's a fix to that. I don't know if that's something that we can look at a little bit better. But I think for an equity standpoint, it'd be nice to figure out a way to get people involved that don't think they can, but encourage them or find other ways to encourage them to do that.
Yes, sir, I completely agree. And we do have a lot of concession opportunities in our district from all of our athletic sports to the rentals. So they don't all. The football definitely takes the most people to run, but we've got volleyball and baseball and soccer games and other district events. We have UIL marching contests and all different types of opportunities that don't require necessarily 40 people on each side of the stadium to run. So there are definitely other opportunities for them if they can't get the whole group together. But I can definitely bring that concern back to our concessions manager and we can put our heads together to try to figure out the best plan to make sure that we're taking care of all of our groups.
Great. And one last question, the 87.5%, where did that number come from?
Yes, sir. So Currently, in our admin regs for concession, 12.5% is off of gross, is the concession fee that the groups, it's like a rental fee to use the facilities. They pay 12.5% off of gross as a fee to the district. So then 87.5% gets divided back amongst the groups that participated.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Terry?
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation. It was great. I just wanted to make sure that I heard you properly, and I was trying to also read the document as you were, or the resolution and the information as you were making the presentation. So just want to be clear as to what you were saying is that the booster clubs, so this resolution would allow whichever booster club worked the concessions at the time to receive the proceeds that they earn from that concession? Or how would this division work? It says also that we would like to divide profits earned to the booster club.
Yes, ma'am. So the way that it's working for this school year is that at the end of the fall season, so in December, they will take all of the events that were worked and they will divide percentages to the groups that worked. For example, if the Madison High School Band Booster Club chooses to work 25 events, and that makes up 33%, they will receive 33% of the profit after the 12.5% has been taken out. So if a group can work 5 events and that makes up 11% of the whole, then that's how much of the percentage that they will receive. Is that what you were asking?
In a sense. So I guess also a little bit related to Mr. Byard's question. So for instance, if you have booster clubs that are more, and it only makes sense, if you have booster clubs that are more active than others, then of course they would receive, the larger share or their percentage share of those proceeds. And currently, I'm sorry to be asking, but currently, I think earlier you said that those concession for Booster Club works, the concessions, that money goes where? Into the district fund?
Yes, ma'am. So in the past, when the NEBPA ran the concession stands, they had their own 501c3 account, and they ran that through a bank. So they kept all the funds, boosters obviously separate. They ran their own checkbook, and they did all the expenditures. And so when it came time to divide out the funds, they divided the funds out from their checking account, and that went out to the school's booster club. So now that the district has hired a concessions manager, all the revenue that's earned and profits that are earned from the concessions after each event go now into a district account that pays for the inventory and that makes sure that there's money to start the concessions each week. And so the money's going in there. So the resolution is asking that if the funds could still be divided to the booster organizations that do participate in concessions instead of being sent to a campus account. So we're asking that it still be able to go to a booster club account, which is an outside account from the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, do I have a motion to grant permission to allow the transfer of revenue funds earned from the district venue concession stands to booster club accounts associated with district programs? The funds here are not state or local taxpayer funds.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hasso. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Shore.
Thank you.
Item C, instruction and campus administration. 1, Possible action regarding federal and state accountability requirements, targeted interventions plan. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you. Good evening. President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'd like to invite Dr. Brent Brummett up to the podium to address this action item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Board of Trustees, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. As you know, one of the responsibilities stipulated in Chapter 39 of Texas Education Code requires that the commissioner take certain specific actions with regard to oversight for campuses who haven't met specific accountability thresholds. In this case, those campuses who have attained an F overall accountability rating, a D overall accountability rating, or a D or an F in any of the 3 individual domains of the Texas Accountability System. The commissioner also mandates that districts in that scenario appoint a DCSI, a district coordinator for school improvement. That individual is required to participate in and oversee the development of a TIP, a targeted improvement plan, that's placed in campus CIIPs, campus instructional improvement plans, that contain ESF, Essential Schools Framework criteria. So if you like acronyms, this is your night. 5 times fast, no, Ms. Winkley, I cannot. So just a little bit of background and some context for these plans. First of all, with regard to that Essential Schools Framework, I think it's imperative that you as a board have an awareness of what those criteria are in the unlikely event that you do not. There are 5. Okay, the first being a strong school leadership. The second being effective and well-supported teachers. The third being positive school cultures. The fourth, a highly effective curriculum. And the sixth, quality, and the fifth, rather, quality instruction. I bring those up because I think it's really pertinent to a lot of your charge to campus staff and to Dr. Micah's vision for the district. With regard to strong school leadership, for example, candidly, it's your vision and his oversight that I'm standing here as DCSI as a result of your decision to expand to 4 executive directors for school administration. In conjunction with the district's work with the Wallace Foundation, that has enabled me, for example, to directly oversee D and F campuses at a ratio far less than you recall in the past, when everything was simply divisible by 3. With regard to positive school climate, I would note that all of your work and your expectation and Dr. Micah's vision regarding wellness and SEL is reflected in that document far before the creation of the document, with regard to metrics for positive school culture and well-being. And then as a belated attaboy and attagirl at the tail end of Principals Month, obviously that effective instruction piece necessitates having really specific metrics designed to address supports and interventions for our neediest group of people. So things that you've done for our most vulnerable populations, like extend continued enrollment criteria, with the money that you've agreed to expend in regard to making sure that each student has a device. Those kinds of things, the actions that you're taking more globally as a board, directly impact what occurs in these TIP plans. Secondly, I would encourage you as you're reviewing these to look over the percentages that campuses have reflected. They may at first glance appear artificially low, but understand there's a method to the madness there. Number 1, remember STAR, as you well know, isn't exclusively pass-fail. There are essentially 4 thresholds from did not meet the standard to approaches the standard to meets the standard to has demonstrated mastery of that standard. So obviously those 4 thresholds will cumulatively result in the percent that is your student population. Secondly, because it's not a static document and because the affected campus is required to reflect on their performance in 90-day intervals, obviously the expectation is that those percentages incrementally, and in some cases exponentially, increase. Also, I will add that the agency is very explicit in its language, that the goals should be attainable, while simultaneously, in true TEA fashion, you have competing adjectives. Attainable but suitably ambitious is their verbatim expectation. So if you have questions about the framework and the criteria for TIP plans and generalities, certainly I'm happy to answer those. I can happily address the specifics of those campuses to which I am assigned. I would be remiss if I didn't give a public shout out to Brandy Merriman, our director in assessment. She is really the great and powerful Oz behind the curtain for a lot of the data disaggregation and a lot of the intervention and the analytical support that's provided to campuses with regard to their TIP plans. So should you have questions of me, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would respectfully request that the board consider approving the TIP plans as they've been submitted in advance of the December 18th deadline to upload to TEA.
Do we have questions?
Just have one question. So, on the matrix, where the part that says public hearing for input,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious to know about that. So, well, right now we're in the middle of COVID. So, are those virtually? And who is this a district-wide? I mean, a school-wide, a campus-wide?
Yes, ma'am.
Or just directed to the students and the families that are not meeting?
No, ma'am. It would be campus-wide.
Okay.
Okay, because those TIP plans and the initiatives in those plans would presumably be for the benefit of every student on the campus. In much the same way that Title I initiatives and Title I fundings, when you have those public meetings, Ms. Winkley, whether or not I'm eligible for free or reduced lunch, I'm still the beneficiary of those things by virtue of being enrolled on a title campus.
Okay.
Your other question, in our current pandemic, the agency has certainly made allowances for campuses to conduct those via Zoom. Okay, candidly, the turnout is about what you would anticipate, in situations like that. So principals, to their enormous credit, are trying to be really creative, in how they convey that message and how they communicate those things in conjunction with another PTA meeting, for example. Those types of things where they can prospectively capitalize on a captive audience, but you are correct. Those public meetings can be addressed via Zoom, and candidly, given our parameters right now, I can't imagine an instance where it wouldn't have to be addressed in that way.
So have we had these public meetings in the past? Yes.
Yes.
And so I'm just curious to know the attendance, the feedback.
Yeah. Miss Winkley, to be honest, they're not well attended typically. They're just not. Even when we could do in person, they're just not. That's why so often we try to piggyback on a PTA or something like that. As a former principal, right? If I really needed to get to parents, I had kids perform, and then I had them, right? And I brought them in. So that's what a lot of principals try to do, is pair it up with some big event at the campus, and then you can get more folks in. But if it's the meeting just for this, typically they don't come out in large numbers.
Dr. Mike, if I could just add, having attended one several years ago, we had one parent at a school, so they are not well attended usually.
Is there a deadline for when they
Yeah.
have to be held?
The submission deadline for the TIP plans, Ms. Grona, is December the 18th.
So the public
So the
meetings have to-
assumption would be that the public meeting would have to occur prior to that time, yes.
Okay, okay.
I just don't know what to say to that. Thank you very much for the information.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Well, you can offer it, but you can't make them come.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
mean-
And that's a really pertinent point, Ms. Grona. The statute is that you hold the meeting, and the district's documentation will reflect that the public was offered that opportunity to provide input. There isn't any kind of quorum or any kind of requirement about the number of attendees that you have to have, but rather that the campus offered that opportunity.
Yeah, okay. Anybody have any questions, comments? All right, sorry, I'm trying to get to the action item. Do I have a motion to approve the targeted intervention plan submitted so that each can be uploaded to the Texas Education Agency by the established deadline of September 18, 2020?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hasso. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Omar had his hand up. Thank you. All those in favor say
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Crummett.
Thank you, President Brown.
Item 2, possible action regarding 2020-2021 campus improvement plans. Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you, President Grona, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. As you recall, we brought HB3 goals, which is the 5-year goals that we set as a district probably back in September. Then in October, we brought forward the DIP plan, which now we're here to present in front of you is the SIP. So it's the HB3, the DIP, and now the SIP. And so I would like to ask Dr. Munoz to present this agenda item. Thank you.
It is acronym night.
Good evening once again, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Tonight, we present the 2020-2021 campus instructional improvement plans for all campuses in Northeast Independent School District. The contents of the campus instructional improvement plans are highlighted in this presentation. Okay, there we go. Texas Education Code 11.253 under campus planning and site-based decision-making ensures that each school shall maintain current policies and procedures to ensure that effective planning and site-based decision-making occurs at each campus and to direct and support the improvement of student performance for all students. The items in each campus instructional improvement plan must include but are not limited to the following: identify and set attainable goals, which include House Bill 3, assess student academic achievement, identify how campus goals will be met, determine the resources needed to implement the plan, identify staff needed to implement the plan, set timelines for reaching identified goals, establish progress measures for all performance objectives, identify ways to encourage parental involvement, include goals and methods to ensure a safe learning environment, and set goals and objectives for a coordinated health program. The table of contents includes a mission statement, which is defined by NEISD. It also includes board goals listed 1 through 8 on the SIP cover page, which is very similar to our DIP. The contents are listed by target areas, and SIP review is ongoing throughout the calendar year. The SIP structure and purpose: it includes board goals that are selected by each of the campuses. The target areas are specific to each campus and defines what areas are part of the targeted improvement. Measurable evaluation criteria lists how they will measure the success of each objective. Performance objectives and strategies are based on the needs assessment and defines what the campus is planning to accomplish and how the objectives will be met. Formative checkpoints monitor progress throughout the year to ensure that strategies are effectively meeting each objective listed on their SIP, and this includes the method they will use and how often they will monitor progress throughout the year. And the timeline is throughout the calendar year, along with the cost and resources that are defined by the campus, who work collectively with departments within central office. So that is a sample plan. As you can see, the board goals, target areas, measurable evaluation criteria, performance objectives and strategies, formative checkpoints, timeline, persons responsible, and the cost and resources are listed there. The addition of the checkpoints are listed and defined by the campus. So if they're doing quarterly checks, if they're doing monthly checks, those are all checkpoints that are included in each of their campus plans. So we're going to go ahead and go to our campus instructional improvement plans, but we want to highlight our House Bill 3 5-year campus goals. Last time we were able to come to you with our House Bill 3 goals to be able to establish those goals as a district. So in addition to that, we went ahead and in communicating with campuses, they were able to establish a House Bill 3 5-year goal, and that's what we're going to take a look at right now. In order to align, if you go there, yes. So in order to align with district goals, each campus has followed suit and has created their House Bill 3 goals. They're currently listed there on our website, as Brandy just showed you. They have added these components to their campus instructional improvement plans to ensure that equity and accessibility are supported throughout the year. So essentially, we are connecting the dots between what is listed in our district improvement plan and how that is resembled in their House Bill 3 plan and their goals for their campus, along with their campus instructional improvement plan. So they are all interconnected. So if we can go back and show a sample of our campus instructional improvement plan. You want to go to Garner? Garner Middle School. And so there, if you notice, the campus instructional improvement plans are currently in draft form. That way, after you all review these campus improvement plans, you're able to ask any questions that you may have, and we're hopeful to get these approved. As part of this presentation, we have Ms. Marissa Wolfsberg, principal from Northern Hills Elementary, and Mr. John Bojeskel, principal from Garner Middle School, who are present and will be able to explain the campus instructional improvement plan from the elementary and secondary perspective. They're also able to take any questions that you may have about the campus instructional improvement plan process and how it comes to fruition. So if y'all would like to come up.
From the elementary perspective, when I came in last year to Northern Hills, what we really needed to focus and recognize is that it starts from the bottom up. And when we were looking at that campus improvement plan and we were looking at those goals, we realized and recognized we got to look at those pre-K students. We have to look at our kinder students. And when we brought the committee together of our CIC, we wanted to make sure that those representatives that were nominated by their grade levels, to include parents and community members, understood our goal, overall goal, and that was student growth. So we continue to have those conversations. We look at the data, beginning with our pre-K students, looking at our circle data. How can we continue to show growth? How can we continue to make sure that every child on a campus belongs to everyone in the school? We look at our fifth grade teachers and we say, hey, those little ones, you're responsible for them too. And we look at our pre-K teachers, those fifth graders that are trying to make it to middle school, we're responsible for them as well. So when we look at our goals, it's an overall picture. And we, again, like I said, just looking at that growth, targeting those goals, targeting the data, and making sure everyone is aware of what the next steps are.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsberg. Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'll add to that and just share a little bit about the process that we go through to revise the campus plan. So usually in the springtime, what we'll do is we use our Campus Improvement Committee to facilitate the process. They also work in conjunction with our leadership teams and our instructional teams to help ensure that the voice of all the teachers on our campuses throughout all of the departments have an input in revising the plan. Because we didn't have START and EOC this spring, we're going back to the previous year's data. And so what we did is we started to use that data, including other data, district benchmarks, student attendance, and student discipline. And we looked at all of our target areas by department. And each of the teachers in each of those respective departments looked at those targeted measures using the data to determine if they actually achieved the goals, including our campus goals overall. Depending on how that came about or how the outcome turned out, they would make instructional changes to any of the strategies by performance objective and by target area. And then when we came back throughout the summer, we continued that plan. And then this fall, when we were able to come back together to meet, we reviewed those same measures. And in the Campus Improvement Committee, we also have business partners, district leadership involved, and also parent and community involvement in there. And so at that point, they were able to look at the final draft and provide any other suggestions before we presented them back to the district for final approval.
And I just wanted to add, more than anything, it's having that transparency and of what we're working on as a team, and making sure that everyone is aware of that data and we have nothing to hide. I mean, it's important. And as Dr. Brummett shared, as far as that TIP plan, for example, our team, our campus does have to build in those TIP goals within our campus. And so, you know, we share with our team. Sandy, back to your question about when we presented our TIP plan, I think we had 10 And we did it over Zoom, and you tried, and we sent out one reminder after another after another. 10 that is true. 10 times better. It is 10 times better. But, to share and say, we had a D in one of our domains. This is why we're doing it. You've got to be there and say it, and this is your plan. And to be very transparent and specific with your plan is always important.
I had one question or comment, or both. I think emphasizing that transparency is really, really important. And I was telling Ms. Cronin when y'all came up here, I said, well, now we know who drew the short straw on the presentation. But having said that, I know too that y'all are so representative of all the other leaders on our campuses, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
My question though is, not that it's a redundant process, but it is a good process that's in place. But this year, there's been some, you may have heard, there's been some challenges. How did that affect trying to put together our plans? I mean, you mentioned with No Star and all the other impacts that has had, and having to use previous year's data. But where's that going to take us down the road?
So I'll first add to that. The campus goals that we adopt every school year usually are tied back to the STAR and EOC data. But what you typically see is a pattern of those areas that a school needs to focus on every school year. And so we needed to make sure that even though the pandemic is going on and a lot of our students are still learning virtually, we needed to make sure that we were still sticking to ensuring that every student on our campus was receiving the best education and the best instruction that our teachers could provide. And so we went back and we looked at those strategies, and we had to ask ourselves, how do you do this now through virtual learning? Are there any types of professional development training, any technology training that our teachers need, or any other type of objective or strategy that we have to change from our current plan to ensure that we are adapting to the way we're teaching this current year? Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I fully agree with him there. One of the things that we did have to go back and look at, because we were given permission to carry over our goals. However, considering the pandemic and the number of students that did return, and then the percentage of students that are still participating virtually, we had to base a lot of our goals now on the projected performance of MAP data that was middle of year. And we looked at our projected numbers and then looked at our beginning of year numbers. And to say they were a bit discouraging is an understatement. So we really had to go back and look at the strategies that we had in place and visit the students that are still are still participating virtually, and saying, okay, are these goals still reasonable? And there were some adjustments that we had to make. We're trying to keep it attainable, but yet shooting for that, for that B, that 80, that's our goal, is to hit that B. But also being realistic. How do we continue to reach those children that are still at home virtually, especially our children under special education, our second language students, and implementing those strategies that we know would be much more effective and impactful if they were in front of us on a daily basis.
And if I can add to that, the MAP data was really to give us a baseline of where our kids were at, and the MAP data actually has a pretty direct correlation to the STAR assessment. I guess when I look at STAR, I look at it as the autopsy of the year. And so we really have to embrace this idea of using formative assessments to do more checkpoints along the way so we can intervene early before it's too late. And so using that baseline data allows us to create more formative assessments, to create more checkpoints, and then teachers can adjust their practice accordingly. And MAP really sits at an elementary level and at some secondary. So for our secondary, we've had to use a lot of pre-assessment prior to giving a formal assessment, and so that drives the instruction as well. And then, of course, our benchmark assessment, which also has a direct correlation to STAR results.
Thank y'all so much. I think, too, it's so important. Maybe this is one of those side effects that, I don't know if it'll happen, maybe not, maybe that one person attending But because we are streaming these meetings right now, parents don't have time to come to these board meetings in the evening. That's our job. But, and so thank you again too for even showing the steps to get to these reports. Maybe someone's gonna watch this stream and actually maybe you'll have more than 10, who knows? Wouldn't that be a shock? But thank you so much. I think that transparent word is so important. This information is available all the time, year round, to anyone who wants to access it. They don't even have to be in our district. So I really appreciate all the work that y'all put into this. It's so important. So maybe we have one side effect from streaming and recording and everything else. I've been in classes all day today for school board governance, and I will be tomorrow too. They're recording everything, and I have a feeling I'm going to go back and watch some of those classes again, and I know fellow trustees will be able to go watch the classes too. So just like our talking heads over here, you know, just like our max headrooms over here. So maybe this technology issues that we've had to deal with this last year may pay off for us a little bit. So if we can showcase y'all, all the better.
You did a great job. Thank you very much. You should do this more often.
Well, I just
Keep
wanna-
drawing that short straw.
You were so comfortable. You were very open and transparent. I appreciate that, and I think that our parents do as well.
Well, thank you.
Great presentation.
Well, and thank you to your both and your CIC team, because, you know, listening to this, I've been on CIC before, and I know, you know, going through, as we all have, right? But, you know, just the challenge of trying to do this plan. I mean, I hadn't thought, it didn't hit me until you said that. And I was like, oh my gosh, really just trying to make this a viable plan with all the virtual learning and everything that's going on. So really, just thank you, because I know, you know, this has really been a challenge. So, and thank you to all the principals and CIC teams, but thank you for representing. Do y'all have any questions or comments?
I had one question that was a little bit, I guess, general in nature. I know principals have their hands full getting just the schools by themselves, their own school campus improvement plan. But is there ever any, I guess, collaboration between schools that might be in the same class, or feeder schools, to understand if, you know, a goal in one might help a goal in one, a school up the line, like elementary to middle school or middle school to high school? Just curious if that is ever part of the discussion, knowing that I'm sure principals talk all the time together, but if there's a check in there somewhere to make sure that we're continuing something that might be an issue in one spot.
Great question. Yes, the answer is we communicate with each other on a daily basis, and that includes instruction, other problem issues that are taking place, and we even go as far as trying to discuss the issues with like campuses so that the actual viability of being able to implement that at our school versus another tile campus, for example, or non-title campuses, and the issues that they may have, which may be different than ours. The answer is that collaboration truly does happen even across the horizontal lines. And then at our cluster meetings, at periodic times throughout the school year, the cluster meetings will also take that input in a vertical between the elementaries and that transition period to middle school, and then middle school to high school.
And again,
Thank you.
I agree. Yeah, we have the like 40, the comparison group that we're placed into, and it's the 40 campuses. I know that there are 2 other campuses in Northeast that are in my comparison group, and we're encouraged to visit those other campuses so we can hit one of those distinctions and be in the top 25%. So it's encouraged, and we have a lot of those collaborations, and like he said, in those cluster meetings, and obviously our principal meetings as well, because we're given those chances to have those discussions.
I can share a specific example. So when Brandy shares with us at principals meetings benchmark results or even STAR results,
I in particular was looking at our math performance across the board and with like schools, and I picked up the phone and asked Mrs. Deason at Jackson, how on earth has she been able to help change the math performance on our campus so significantly over the last 3 or 4 years? And she just comes out and shares with me all of the different specific action items that she put into place and had her dean help put into place. And then I try to steal those ideas and implement them on my campus.
That's awesome.
That's not stealing, that's sharing best practices.
That's right.
Or stealing.
So I just want to go ahead and take just a second to thank our principals, our teachers, our community members for everything that they do. It's been a very challenging year, and your efforts are greatly appreciated. So thank you so much.
Yes.
So if you have any questions about any campus plan, we could reconnect with that particular campus plan and that campus principal to answer any of your questions. But at this time, if there are no questions, administrative staff recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the NEISD campus instructional improvement plans for the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
Any other questions before I go for a motion? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the NEISD campus instructional improvement plan for the 2020-2021 school year as presented?
So moved.
Terry.
There we go.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do I have a second? Ms. Winkley?
Second.
Well, you said it first and then I looked at her. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the motion carries.
Okay, let me just for the record. The motion was Ms. Williams and the second was Ms.
Yes.
Winkley? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank
I
you
can
for a
see
great
Peggy over there.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. All right, item D, business services. 1, possible action regarding 2021 legislative agenda. Ms. Caldwell.
And then we have Mr. Cummings that wants to speak to the agenda item too.
Yeah.
Madam President, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. On October the 26th, you held a board workshop to go through legislative agenda items, and you charged me with creating your agenda for the upcoming legislative session. That is in your packet tonight. So we are bringing it forward to you and requesting your approval.
Yeah, where is Mr. Cummings?
I did not see him in the lobby.
You don't have what you sent me, that nice presentation?
The PDF, we can pull it up.
Just so everyone else out here can see it while we're waiting for Mr. Cummings. Or maybe not.
Mrs. Grona, he's not out there. They're checking in 313 to see if he's there.
Okay, thank you. You
So-
are up, Mr.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
So it's up on the screen. These are
Okay.
the items that you identified at the October 26th meeting, covering accountability, school funding, the teacher pipeline, charter transparency, and COVID-19 pandemic response.
Okay, Mr. Cummins, would you like to speak to this agenda item?
Coming down the elevator, did y'all make a presentation yet? May I speak after the presentation?
That was it.
That was it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Mr. Cummings.
I don't know what happened, I just got here.
That's okay. Because y'all discussed it at length at the October 26th workshop, I did not bring back a presentation, so I apologize
Okay.
for that. But I do have here, Mr. Cummings, the PDF presentation that was part of their packet.
I trust you. I know your history. It's very good.
It's very nice.
So I thought the PDF was the presentation? Looked great.
It is.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Tom Cummins, and I'm representing Northeast AFT. First, I want to say thank you for the supplement on behalf of the employees. And second, that we also appreciate moving up the citizens to be heard, although we disagree with the 30-minute part. Also, congratulations on those who were reelected. Mr. Hassel, thank you for your service. We appreciate what you've done for the students in the district. What I would like to speak on is the legislative agenda. This session that's going to be coming up is one of those that most important in decades. Probably have to go back to House Bill 72 because we're going to have to recover from the pandemic. School finance is going to be a primary concern. There are other issues that I think are very, very important. We do eliminating high stakes testing would be one of those others. We do want to support your agenda, and we look forward to working with you and your staff. So anything we can do, please feel free to call on us.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, any questions or comments regarding the agenda? I mean, the legislative agenda? It's beautiful. Do I have a motion to adopt the legislative agenda for the 87th Texas Legislature?
So move.
Okay. Mrs. Huey, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Byer, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Item 2, possible action regarding public notice of the School First Rating Report of Superior Achievement. Mr. Moy.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests, this is required by law for us to present to you our school's first results. These are the results for our 2019 fiscal year report. It takes TEA a while to gather them all up and process the results. This is the 18th year of Schools First, and this is the 18th year Northeast ISD has gotten a superior rating. Jeff Coates, Senior Director of Accounting and Payroll, is going to go over a couple of highlights of our scores, and then he and I will both be available for questions.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. We're going to do Schools First 2020, which, as Mr. Moy said, was based on ratings or financial data of 2019. As we all know, governments move slow. 2020 rating, there are 15 different criteria, same as they have been in years past. We received a superior rating, 18th year in a row that we received a superior. 87% of school districts in the state of Texas also received superior. Our lowest rated scoring indicators were indicators 7 and 8. They were both related to current assets, and it's the way that TEA calculates current assets and the way that Mr. Moy uses the commercial paper program to put out more short-term liabilities than long-term liabilities. So it dings us a little bit, but it still gets us to superior. We've had these same 3 low-scoring indicators for, I think, 4 years in a row. So it's more or less expected, and we're going to probably be in the same ballpark, lower 90s next year also. This is number 8, the long-term liability to total asset ratio. And that is the 2020 presentation for Schools First. There's a Schools First report that y'all have in your packet that will be posted to the board, the website. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? Other than kudos, because I was thinking last year we were a little concerned that we might not get that superior rating.
It was close. That was one of the things that Mr. Moy did, is he's watching the commercial paper at year end to try to minimize the amount we have outstanding to kind of reduce that effect.
Well, awesome.
Good job, Brian.
Yeah, so thank you for doing that, because it's nice to get that superior rating every
I
year.
just have one question. On the question 5, it said was not included this year.
The last 2 years.
Why, I didn't remember that from last year. Could you?
That is number 5, and I'm going to flip over to number 5. That has to do with fund balance and capital appreciation bonds. And it's based on, it's like a multiple choice. If your total net position less the unappreciated capital appreciation bonds or your growth in students, when they put in the TRS, OPEB, and TRS pension liabilities, our net position went negative like many others in the state. And so they have no valid way of how do we assess this, because the TRS pension and OPEB liabilities are just huge and really distort the figures.
Anything, anybody have anything? No, okay. Do I have a motion to note the TEA School District Financial Integrity Rating of Superior Achievement and to accept the NEISD Annual Management Report on Schools First?
So moved.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Thank you, Mr. Hasso, for the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff and
Thank you.
Brian. Item E, Operations. 1, possible action regarding 2015 bond Northeast Institute for Cybersecurity and Innovation Facility renovations, design, modifications, and bid authorization approval. Mr. Clary, sorry,
Madam-
I just was gonna,
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff and guests, Mr. Sullivan is making his way to the podium to make this presentation.
Good evening, Madam President,
good evening.
members of the board, Dr. Micah, members of staff, and other guests. It's my pleasure tonight to be with you to give you an update on our project to build the Institute for Cybersecurity Innovation at the Walmart facility we purchased earlier in the year. As you know, I was here in September last where you authorized the project to move forward and use bond funds plus M&O funds to create the budget for the project. And since that time, there's been some new developments we wanted to bring to your attention, which is going to change the construction sequencing, with your permission. So this slide here is the master plan that you approved in September. It shows the 10 classroom areas, the robotic CT workroom, the admin area, and the future competition space. None of this has changed. What's changed that we want to talk to you about tonight is the sequencing. Last we were here, we had recommended, with the funding we had available, that we could do phase 1, which builds the 2 Security Operations Center classrooms, a collaborative learning space, the lobby, the admin area, and we do some renovation work in the existing Walmart restrooms to convert them into the facility restrooms, which will carry us with a maximum of 50 students per class period. And then we were going to do the other 3 phases in succession, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, over the course of the future years, whether it be with bond funds, M&O funds, or donated funds from other entities that wanted to partner with us. However, in the last 30 days, Mr. Peterson, who has joined us tonight, who's the CTE director, he and his staff have been looking at the curriculum for the facility, and they realized that the best way to conduct the instruction is they need both phase 2. I'll go back. Phase 2 is the area up here, these 2 classrooms, 3 and 4, and the restrooms, plus phase 3 was the network labs. They need both of those phases to come online simultaneously. The original plan was phase 2, then Phase 3, and then the competition space. So when we looked at this from a construction standpoint, the thing that stood out to us was, based on the budget we had, we couldn't do Phase 2 without additional funding. You know, the monies that were allocated, in this case, the $3.2 million, would carry us through Phase 1, and we would stop there. But in the year 2022, the CTE department needs both Phase 2, which is the space up here, these 2 classrooms and the restrooms, plus the future network labs that goes where the collaborative learning area. They need both those phases to come online at the same time. Now, the network labs is not going to be a problem. We think we can accomplish the network labs in the summer, whenever the funding is available. But building a restroom from scratch in a building that right now, that's just a piece of empty space with a concrete floor. There's nothing there. There's no plumbing lines. There's no walls. There's zero. We're concerned that the timeline to build that restroom and have it ready to go for the start of the 2020 school year, if this is done sometime after this August, could present a challenge. We're not sure we could accomplish it in the time frame that we have available. So what we'd like to do is we want to build Phase 1 and Phase 2 concurrently. And to do that, we're going to need about $350,000 additional dollars. Then, whenever the funding becomes available for Phase 3, we can knock out Phase 3, we think, very quickly in a 2 to 3 month period, and they'll both be ready to go for the 2022 school year. We need the restrooms that are shown in the upper right-hand corner in order to have more than 50 students per class period. The 50 students per class period really will fill up the 2 SOCs. So we wouldn't be able to operate the 2 SOCs as well as classrooms 3 and 4 and the collaborative area without those restrooms. And again, we are concerned that the restroom construction is a little tight for us to commit that we could do it if it was approved, let's say, a year from now, or maybe in January of next year. It just doesn't give us enough time, we feel, to design it, bid it out, and build it. So what we're asking for your consideration this evening is an additional $350,000 added to the budget coming from M&O funds in order to move Phase 2 ahead in sequencing and combine it with Phase 1 and construct both phases in the coming school year between February and July of 2021. The other recommendation we have for you this evening is we're prepared to finish the design over the next 30 days and prepare to bid out the project. And to meet our timeline, we want to bid the project out using the competitive seal proposal bid delivery method, which is the most advantageous to get us the most bids. It completely opens it up to every contractor that wants to submit a bid. Some school districts in the area on projects of this size or larger have seen upwards of 40 bidders.
Oh, wow.
So we could have a lot of bidders, which is going to give us our best price, because the more bidders you have, the more competitive the bidding environment becomes. So this completely opens up the project to the entire contractor community in the area. And we would come back to you then in February with a recommendation for award, and then we get started with construction. So we're looking for both of these recommendations to be considered by you this evening and hopefully approved.
So the question then becomes, where's the $350,000 coming from, right? Sure. So again, if you'll remember, we were given a little over $5 million, or not given, we received $5 million, right? That tonight, earlier, you just voted on to give the bulk of that to the employees for retention supplement. There is a little bit of money left there. And so what we would do with your approval is use some of that remaining money, approximately about $750,000, I believe, Brian, right? Take $350,000 of that to use that in building this component to it. Really, I was quite shocked when Gary came to me and said, I actually think we can get all of this done for just a little bit more. We thought it would be much more expensive, but correct. And so when we saw that, I mean, again, kind of like the planets, the moons, the stars, everything aligned just properly. It was just right around after we had received this money back from the state, that we took a really hard look at this and then visited with Mr. Peterson and said, you know, this is something worthwhile looking at, just simply because it can get all done really and not dip into our current budget, right? This is money that we just received in, so that's where it would come from.
Okay, that answered probably a lot of questions that
Yes.
everyone had. Does anyone have any other questions, Ms.
I
Winkley?
just have a couple. The first, so because it was only, because the shortfall was much less than I would have anticipated, is there a benefit to doing them simultaneously, building 2 bathrooms out at the same time as opposed to starting one from the very, very beginning and completing and then starting at, are you following what I'm saying? So is there a benefit?
I would say yes, from economy of scales, anytime
Yeah.
you can add more to the project, since you're paying for contractor mobilization fees and the project management team, if you're going to add a little bit more of the project, you're just, I think, getting a better bang for your buck.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's great. And then the second is, so will this enable us to have more students in the initial year of our program? I know that we had talked about that and there was going to be a limit, so I saw more classrooms and thought, yay, more kids, right?
Right. At this time, those rooms are still just being built for the 22-23 school year. So it won't impact the number of students into our initial capturing there.
However, we will be bringing to you in the future a proposal to potentially allow more students in.
Okay.
All right?
Great. I just
We're
want
still
everyone to
working
have
on
this
that.
Wonderful use
Right.
of that facility. It's amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, what we're trying to do, Ms. Winkley, is not just prepare for next year, but the following years afterwards to just be able to seamlessly. Again, it's easier to go out and talk to students and to potential partners and such when you can really show them, here's where this is going year after year. You're going to move from this to this to this to this. And again, with the restrooms, remember that one of the limiting factors was restrooms. Is that first bathroom in phase 1, I think it was 50 at a time, correct?
Correct.
And so by building the second run, it allows us to grow faster if we choose to.
And I think we could have community events that we're already talking about, and those restrooms would also allow for the community events to be there in crowds larger than 50.
Great. Okay.
As soon as COVID allows.
Yeah.
Yes.
Terry, did you have a question? Did I see Terry's
Both
hand?
my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. David?
I had one question on the bid process. I know that since we're going to more of the open general bid scenario, are we okay with timeline? I know that's pretty tight to get everything out. And
Absolutely.
I know it's good.
We're looking to issue the plans in about a month from today. After the Thanksgiving holiday, receive the bids the middle of January, and then come back to you at the February board meeting, and then 6 months later we'll have phase 1 and 2 ready for Mr. Peterson's CT kids.
That's awesome.
I know I was at about a month ago at the Regency neighborhood right next to MAC for a homeowners association, and they were really excited about this thing coming online. So good to see it moving along.
We're actually using the facility starting tomorrow in a CTE program fair where we're bringing in all the CTE kids from across the district over the course of about 4 weeks so they can learn about all the different programs and decide which career path they want to follow.
With COVID, remember, we typically did this at BAC. And that was just simply, so, kudos to Gary for reaching out to the city. I don't know what magic he used, but he got us a temporary certificate of occupancy. Because that is such a large space and you can spread out so well, it just made a lot of sense to use that for this rather than, for those of you, and most of you, or if not all of you, have been to one of those magnet nights, it's crowded. There was just simply no way to do it. So Mr. Peterson and Gary have been working on doing that. So yeah, we're excited to, it's not much. It's an empty Walmart building, but at least it's a building that we can do and spread them out.
If you've got roller skates, then
Skateboard?
I was thinking about a game of ball hockey, but
Okay, anybody have anything else? That's great. All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve a budget increase of $350,000 M&O funds, resulting in a revised ICSI program budget of $3,550,000? See attachment. It is also recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the release of bid documents for this project and authorize use of the request for competitive sealed proposal bid delivery method to solicit competitive contractor bids for this renovation work.
So moved.
Thank
So
you,
moved.
Mr. Hasso. Can I give you the second,
Nope.
Mr. Byer?
That's great. I'll
Okay.
take it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan and
You're
Mr.
most
Peterson.
welcome.
Appreciate it. All right, item F, consent. 1, instruction and campus administration. A, behavior threat assessment district team approval. 2, business services. A, tax roll approval. B, budget amendment number 2. 3, operations. A, M&O and 2015 bond program, transportation north stormwater detention basin replacement project bid award approval. B, professional services contracts, construction contracts, and related contract amendments supporting the 2015 bond and maintenance and operations programs, design and construction requirements. Minutes from October 2020. 5, end of consent. Do I have a board member wishing to pull an item from consent? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Thank you,
So
Mrs.
moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. I'm going to give you the second. Is that okay, Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the motion carries. Item 9, reports. A, interim financial and management reports. B, first quarter investment report, and C, awarded bid report. Those have all been provided to you. Item 10, matters from the floor. It looks like we have one. And since I've already read that at the beginning, I'm not going to read it again. Cody.
Cody Holder.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Madam President, esteemed colleagues of the board, and Dr. Micah, excuse me. It's a pleasure to speak with you all again. My name is Cody Holder. I actually represent Microsoft. Again, I'm not here to sell y'all anything. I'm just here to talk to you about a little bit about some exciting news that has just been announced by the state of Texas in partnership with Microsoft. We are now offering all public high schools in the state of Texas something called Imagine Academy. What that is usually it's a paid service that has to be purchased by the district or the school that empowers the school to give future-ready skills to students. If you notice what the top 10 jobs coming out of high school and college are these days, they're all technology-based. And this Imagine Academy gives you, the board, and your high schools the opportunity to train those students in those skills for free. The only thing that has a cost at all, and we're working with the state to greatly reduce the cost, is the certification exam. And that's not anything that I get money for, that's just to pay for the exam. So I wanted to come share the news with y'all because I think it's very important. Again, I'm just here to show you some free cool things. The last thing I want to do is I'm actually going to have my phone talk to y'all. What I did was I took a small picture of this agenda item using a Microsoft app called Office Lens. And what it can do, it's really powerful for those ESS, ELL learners, or even students with dyslexia or dyslexic ELL learners. And it's going to take the members of the public line on the first page, and it's just going to read it back to you if you don't mind me just hitting play. I'll have to turn up the volume real fast.
YouTube channel. Members of the public may view the meeting live stream on the Northeast Independent School District's YouTube channel by clicking the link below or typing it into your browser.
Oh my gosh.
I took a picture of this with my phone, and it read it back to you. But that's not all it can do. I'm going to use this time to show you the translation features. It can translate in over 65 languages. Spanish being so heavily spoken in the San Antonio area, there's 3 dialects of Spanish that can be spoken. Latin America, Spain, and Mexico Spanish. And I'm going to translate this entire thing and have it read back to you in Spanish.
Los miembros del público pueden ver la transmisión en vivo de la reunión en el canal de YouTube del Distrito Escolar Independiente del Noreste haciendo clic en el enlace de abajo o escribiéndolo en su navegador. Los miembros
The reason I wanted to showcase this to you, because that is not a paid app. You are already our customer. If your students decide to download that to their phone today, they could log in with their Microsoft account using their school ID, and they have access to that at their fingertips. Again, I'm never going to come here to sell you things. I just want to show you cool things that get y'all excited, and I see it right now, and that makes me happy. So please, I've met with several people since I last spoke. Y'all give me a call. I'm going to email the board again like I did last time. Thank you for the time tonight. If y'all ever need anything, do not hesitate to reach out to me or my team. Y'all have a fantastic evening.
Thank you, Cody. Appreciate it. All right, item 11, discussion and possible action regarding board members' requests for items to be placed on a future agenda and our request for reports from the administration. Do I have a board member wishing for something to be placed on a future agenda or request for a report?
Madam President, I have one. Last month, I may need a little help on how we phrase this, but last month I requested a presentation from the shack in the beginning of next year, and after kind of looking at the timing of when the new members came online that we just approved last month, the ability then for them to actually get in and do some work in their committees and meet a few times, I would like to figure out a way to postpone that presentation or that report, or just allow them to do their normal report at the time of year that they do that, which is usually around October. So I would, let me see if I can get this right, like to make a motion to I guess, I don't know, trying to figure out how to say this.
Maybe to
Make a motion.
postpone it? Maybe to
Say that again.
postpone, maybe your motion is to postpone the report until
Yeah.
the regular annual time, or?
Yes, I think so, but I want to make sure, that we don't keep it on the agenda for the January, February timeframe. So if I can move to request that presentation at their normal time of year, which is usually around October, that's what I'd prefer to do.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, I think that makes sense, because it gives them time to actually do their work and have some
Absolutely.
Recommendations and plans, as opposed to just
Yeah.
getting on. So
Yep.
I agree with that. Does anybody else have any discussion before we vote? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Okay, before we adjourn, oh, go
I
ahead.
do, if I may.
Yes.
Prepared this here just so that I don't ramble. But in many ways, the past 4 years have flown by. And at the same time, it seems like I have served for 8 years, given some of the issues we've had to navigate. It has been the privilege of a lifetime to serve this district as a trustee and to work alongside so many wonderful people whose only interest is serving our children. To my board colleagues, every now and again, the stars align to create perfection. By this, I do not mean that we are infallible, but rather the providence that brought us together is something for which I am eternally grateful. I care deeply about each of you and your families, and I look forward to continue sharing in those special family moments and sharing mine with you. Over the past 4 years, we cast many votes, and I am at peace with each one. There is one, however, that I am most proud of, and that was naming you, Dr. Micah, Superintendent of Schools. You are the right person to chart a new course for our district. It's no surprise to me that already you have become a go-to person amongst your colleagues in neighboring districts. I appreciate your energy, your dedication, and most importantly, your friendship. Your staff is remarkable, and I am continually amazed by their relentless pursuit of excellence in all they do. It's not only admirable, it's infectious. Seeing them strive to be their best always made me want to be the best I could be in my role as a trustee and as a banker. As my time on this board draws to a close, I reflect on so many wonderful memories, and I know that for as much as I gave, I received so much more in return. So, Madam President, I'll sign off in the same way I would with our Reagan seniors each May. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. May God bless each of you and this district I dearly love.
We appreciate your service and your friendship. You've been a great board member, friend, and we will miss you dearly. And this is just a small token of our appreciation for everything that you've done. I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8:58.